So I ran the bolts from the joiner through a bath of the evaporust and then rinsed them off, and then here I had them all set out to dry, and once they dried I figured, okay, I want to paint the tops, and I figured I'd try and paint them silver, but there's a bunch of bolts. I don't want to be holding these things, so it's like, okay, what's the easiest way to do this in bulk? Well, I have a bunch of scrap plywood, so I just got my Forstner bits and made a bunch of holes that matched the number of bolts I had. So there's two largest ones where it holds the head on, and then there's six slightly smaller where that holds the feet onto the base, and then there's a whole bunch of 3/8 16 size bolts. Those are those all ones there that I'm counting. And there's two other intermediate ones as well that I had to drill. But yeah, I just put a bunch of holes in, and that worked decently well. I mean, it's scrap plywood. It doesn't matter as long as the bolt doesn't fall through. It's fine. It doesn't matter if it's a great hole. It doesn't matter if it's a clean hole. It doesn't matter if it's a messy hole. As long as the bolts don't fall through. The bolts didn't fall through, so that was a success. Those other bolts are the ones, or some of the other ones that I need to do some more work on. So I didn't put those in for paint. But yeah, there you can see that's what's going on. And that's how I set it up. I just add a longer piece of plywood and some clamps. Definitely put your mask on because paint stinks and you don't want to be breathing that. But yeah, the way I had it just went all four sides, and later I ended up doing the bottoms real quick as well before I installed them, but worked just fine. And that was the silver paint, same silver paint I used for the lettering. And then once I got done with that, then I decided, all right, I need to lift this up and try not to bang the thing all over the place and knock the paint off. Because nothing worse than you paint something and you make a mess. So, yay for the engine hoist. First I tried that, no, that's not going to work. I got to put the feet on before I can work it on the stand. So, first I tried this without the proper step of using the tap and die set, which I purchased just for this function. I tried to just put the bolts in. They were not going in. It's like I should not be having to screw them these tight. It's binding on the paint. Because the paint for the primer and the paint both went in the holes. So I was like, okay, go get the right things. Get the tap. Put that in there. It cleaned up quite a bit of gunk that was in the holes. So it was definitely useful. And then putting that back in, that worked much better. I still had to use the wrench a little bit on this side, but that was so much quicker. And then I was able to swing it around. Then this time I also went through on all the bolts and cleaned them up with the die portion to make sure the threads were good. And these, I was able to basically hand thread those the whole way up through, so that was awesome. And then they went on quick. And then I was able to get that out of the way, and now it's get it over onto there. And I put t-shirts down so it didn't bang up the paint, and it went down in. So that's awesome, and it rolls. And then I just bolted it down to the base, and it's all good. Well, it's painted, and it's on the legs, and it's bolted to the cart. I still have to figure out where I'm going to put the cart while I work on the rest of the stuff, but that part worked. And I ended up spray painting the bottoms of the bolts as well, just with a quick spritz, because I noticed that these had a little bit of rust on, and that way the bottoms are painted. The one thing, because I put primer and paint on there and spray painted past the holes with both, I had such a problem with this first leg, and then I realized the reason it's hard, because these came out finger tight. Once I got it loose, I was able to just use fingers to take them out. It's like, I shouldn't have to use a wrench. So, luckily, I had purchased this set, the Duratec large size tap and die set, that specific thing, because this had the 9/16 12, I think it was. Yeah, 9/16 12. So I used the die to go down through the bolts and just make sure those were good. And I used the tap, and the tap definitely got a good workout, cleaning out the paint and such. But then I was able to finger tighten them in pretty much the whole way, especially on the second leg. I pretty much was able to go the whole way up because I did a little bit better balancing it. But very cool. I think it's going to work. And I think these color bolts are going to look nice against the blue. We'll see. I think it looks cool. All these little ones are for the ones down along the sides on those metal pieces that hold the table to the base. So I think it's going to work. But yeah, I think that's a good progress for today and this weekend. I got that all finished. I got the bolts soaked and cleaned up. And I got some temporary replacements until I can go over and my friend from work, Tom, can make me some real ones. I got some temporary replacements so I can put things back together in case I don't get there or he doesn't have time until I get to the point of putting stuff back. But that way, it'll work. So I'd rather be able to have it put back together and then take a bolt out and put a new one back in than not be able to put it back together because I'm having problems. And the one thing I ran into was this bolt, which is what gets put in on the side of course that's going to fall. On this section, this was broken off. I did get a handle that I think that I'm going to need to tap and set up and such, but this was broken off, and the problem is this is a 7/16 14, I think, or at least it's a 7/16 bolt. Home Depot doesn't do 7/16. The closest they do is 1/2 inch. So if nothing else, I now have a 1/2 inch bolt that's long enough, or I hope it's long enough, I really hope it's long enough, that worst case I can take it over and have Tom put it in his lathe and trim this down and remake this as a 7/16, because I think there's enough metal there. Yeah, it should be right. There should be enough metal, I hope, in there to make threads. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and we'll just try something else. But I don't think... Oh, 1/2 inch actually does go in there. Well, so worst case, I suppose, I could just re-tap the hole in the casting as 1/2 inch. But I'd rather do the same size it was, just to keep things a little bit better. So this is the handle I got. It's a CL21-PHK palm grip hand knob. It's aluminum, which I hope is going to work. It should work. I don't know why it wouldn't. But yeah, there's enough space to put even a 1/2 inch hole and tap that in. And then I think I'm also going to try and get once this gets put in place, drill down the side and put a set screw to dig into the bolt so the hand wheel doesn't come off. That's the plan anyway. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I got a replacement knob. That is similar to what's supposed to go on there. So yeah. I still have to figure out what to put, if anything, between there and the casting. Like, I don't know if there's supposed to be a spacer piece, but I could just get a piece of pipe as a spacer. I got extra washers, so I could just get a piece of pipe or something as a spacer to go between there and the casting. That way it doesn't mess up the paint and such. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm happy. We have progress.